Okay, well, welcome back to another episode of Pomelo Pitch Deck here on the Jenner EOS channel. I'm Jimmy D. If you don't know who I am, well, you do now. And we're back for a season 3 pitch with Chuck MacDonald. You joined us for season 2, and we talked about the Eden elections. We talked about what Dan was doing, with more equal animals, and how you got into EOS. And it was one of my, most interesting conversations when it looked at like the historical perspectives of where we've come. You guys went through that round of your funding, and now you're back for season 3 with another EOS election funding, but you've also got another proposal up there as well that you guys are going to be talking about. So welcome back to the channel, Chuck. I hope you're well. Looking forward to diving into what you guys have been building. How have you been?
Pretty good, man. Yeah. There's a lot going on, and I'm just trying to trying to keep focused. I have too many irons in the fire, basically, and none of them are actually making me any money. So it's kind of difficult to keep going, but it's good. Learning a lot about the ecosystem and learning a lot about what needs to happen in EOS and EOS.io. I partnered with Dominic Thomas, and we saw a need for Eden to raise some funding for its own for the stuff that it wants to build, and anyway, there's been a lot of discussion in Eden and around Eden about whether Eden is a public good or not. It's by the definition that Pomelo is using for a public good. Eden itself is a private club essentially, and it's not really a public good. So building the clubhouse or stocking the bar at the club is not a public good, whereas like the open source software that runs Eden, that's a public good. So the stuff that we're going to build in Eden that could be usable by the whole world, that's a public good, but actually running Eden itself is not a public good. So
it's interesting because I just got off of another episode with Charles Bishop, who is out for an EOS support proposal. And one of the things that they're looking at is plugging elections into their platform, which will basically be a carbon copy of Eden. So I think like when we look at the definitions for Pomelo and what is a public good, it just really depends on where you allocate the funding to, right?
Yep.
Like you're allocating the funding as you say, to the infrastructure of the clubhouse, as opposed to you're allocating the funding to expand the network through, expand the open protocol into other regions that might benefit from it. I think that's really, there's a fine line there for me. But I like the fact that you guys are kind of thinking about it in that framework and deciding, where you want to allocate the funds to.
Well, in our pitch deck there, we on the Pomelo site, our pitch is a little bit. There's another frame added on there. We're raising money for development of open source utilities. So this is using the Eden process, and the way that Eden members are coming together now in this the Fractal Forum kind of thing, where we're all getting together and we're shooting the shit and we're talking about how to make things better, and then maybe presenting some work that we've done through the week or talking about stuff that we've done, and then being rewarded for that work in the moment. And it's a different dynamic than being elected and given a budget to do stuff with. Being rewarded on a weekly basis is more like what Fractally is doing, and it tends to draw people together. It's a really nice dynamic, right? It's nice to get together and chat, learn about each other's skills and find out what each other are doing, find out what needs to be done in the community, find out, looking at block one, everything comes back to this. It's like, it was just this big black hole. Nobody knew what was going on. Nobody could plan to build a project because you thought that B1 was going to be coming out with the open source killer version of that, which why would you start a project if B1 is just going to be, and with that.
Well, and I mean, not even that, but there was a serious lack in funding for people who were.
Well, of course, that too, but even just understanding the direction that other people are going is a benefit all by itself. Being able to have open discussions with people about what they want to work on, what they are working on, and then you can mesh with each other and not waste resources duplicating. It's good to duplicate things because people learn every single time they do it. They learn on an individual basis, but for the sake of the network and the community, it's better to not duplicate efforts if some of them are getting wasted. Anyway, we're all coming together. We're getting stuff done, talking about how to approach problems, and we want to take this dynamic and really charge it up into the Eden election circle. So what we talked about, the chief delegates from last term, was creating these circles which would be more focused on aspects of Eden. So Eden elections and the election software and the election component of the whole thing is something that needs to be taken care of, and it needs to be worked on, and it needs to be funded. Like Eden elections actually cost money to run. Every 3 months or every 2 months or 1 month in the future, however often we're going to do it, it's going to cost a bit of money to run those elections. And that operational expense is something that's been argued back and forth, but we don't see that as a public good. We see that as more of the expense of running Eden. However, in our grant this time, we wrote in that we were going to be raising 10% of what we raise here that goes to the circle is going to be can be allocated for operational expenses. So depending on how inexpensive it gets to run these elections, and depending on how much we get in these Pomelo grants, the cost of running Eden elections could be completely covered by this. And it's really nice that the Pomelo folks permitted this, that we can direct some of this towards our OPEX, because it was something that's been a fairly contentious subject in Eden, is where is this money going to come from for our regular operations? And if some of it can come from Pomelo, that's a fantastic situation. Right out the gate, this grant was actually the highest performing grant on day one of Pomelo. And it's we still have a tremendous amount of money donated, but the matching is not there because only 24 people have donated right now. If we got literally another 20 people to donate, we would probably go up by about 10 grand. And that's $20. That's 20 EOS.
Right.
If 20 people donated 1 EOS, it would be worth about 10 grand to this grant. It's
and I think
really significant.
That's really worth it, making mention of, because we noticed with Pomelo season 1, a lot of people, this was new, it was a cool idea. A lot of people came out and they threw 1 or 2 EOS at a bunch of projects, right? And for Pomelo season 2, the grant gifts that came from the quadratic funding was even higher. But one of the things that, was, I think, problematic in season 2 was a lot of people kind of didn't jump in and throw their, EOS in right away when the grants came out. And I think we're noticing that with season 3 as well, where people are just kind of, waiting and haven't really thrown their stuff in. And I'd just like to encourage everyone, to go through all of the proposals and pick a few of your favorites. And, like Chuck said, yourself donate $10, right? You yourself donate $10 to 10 different projects, and everyone in the community does that. That's how we can really take advantage of that, extra funding that's coming in to build networks like this.
Yeah. And in the case of this grant, with the funds going towards essentially developers, like development of code, if we've got developers in Eden who we're talking about little things, we're talking about like just putting a little tool together that's going to make something easier, day-to-day functions for the way we would have meetings, or being able to write MSIGs more efficiently, or all just little tools that we would be able to use as a community. We've got so many really excellent developers in Eden, and if they just think that this money, it will be coming right back to, I'm not talking quid pro quo here, I'm talking about this is money that will be going right back into the developer ecosystem inside Eden. And the more money that the vote.eden circle has, the better we can improve our election technology, the better we can maintain it, and the better that we can run our elections. And it's literally we're just a few donations away from having a really successful grant here. And I just really, really strongly urge every Eden member to just donate one EOS. It would make a huge difference to this. This slide here is pretty much the way I see Eden. Eden and EOS. Eden is the showcase for the blockchain transactions of the blockchain integrations of the highest quality and importance. And if you've been a part of an Eden election, you've seen how exciting it is, how rewarding it is to use their real life blockchain interactions. It's not like sending Bitcoin and then an hour later you get the confirmation, or Ethereum and 10 minutes, blah blah blah. It's like you can vote up to the very last second in your room, and your transaction hits in real time, and it makes a difference. And the Eden software was developed by, as everybody knows, some of the finest blockchain engineers in the world, and it's really, really elegant. The package that has been put together is really elegant. There's a lot of moving parts in there. There's a lot of stuff that can go wrong and that does go wrong, and it's highly unstable software. It's experimental, blah blah blah. But the fact is that it works, and now Eden as an organization has a handle on it, and it's actually in our control. It's our responsibility. We don't have Fractally or the Clarion team there as essentially the guardian for EOS anymore. For Eden, we're running the show, and we have to figure out how best to develop this software going forward, or just maintain it and harden it as it is, and then just add layers around it if that's the way that we're going to approach it. But the fact is that it's the basis for some very, very elegant blockchain interactions, and it showcases what EOS is capable of. And Eden, the EOS network wants Eden to succeed. It funded Eden so that it could succeed, and it wants to see it keep going. It doesn't want to see this software get abandoned. It wants to see this software thrive. So I'm not going to say that it's an easy road ahead making this software thrive, but I think that maintaining it and hardening it is what we have to do. And I think that we can do it as a community. And then by donating to this grant, it gives a pool of funds that the Eden community is going to decide how to use and direct towards things that are going to improve our election system.
And I think it's interesting that if we look at where kind of the first Eden elections started, and how choppy certain things were in terms of the group organization and getting everyone involved, and no discredit to anyone who is putting that together, but that was before any of the software was developed, right? And the last one, that I didn't participate in the last one, but the one before that was relatively smooth, right? Like things were developed and moving along. So again, once the software is there that can be plugged in and implemented as open source to any other organization that happens to want to use this or carbon copy it and utilize it, then it actually does become a facet for governance that is on chain and undeniably more transparent and coherent than pretty much anything that we're seeing out there in the real world, at the very least, right? We've got multiple issues with blockchain technology that are more beliefs than they are standards at this point. I mean, we talk about DAOs and decentralization, and I would say beyond open source technology, we're still at that level where a lot of it there's a hard parallel, but I mean, the value of fiat is the value of fiat because people believe that it's the value of fiat. I mean, the inability to have a non-decentralized network is only really because people believe in it. Anyone can walk in and block your account or kill your tokens whenever they want, right? and we're still in the hands of the developers, right? And so we're seeing things like the EOS hack that happened not so long ago, where the block producers came in and it took them a few days, but they were actually able to stop the network and wrangle the stolen funds back. And this is why it works, right? This is why we're able to do it, because it's open, because it's transparent. Now, once we plug that into a governance aspect, where you actually have to be verified to be able to participate, where you actually have to be, there in the room, where you actually have to be voted through for what you're proposing to enact, and where you're actually held accountable for, where those funds that you're getting are allocated to. It really is the next level of governance, and it might be beyond what most other blockchains are coming out with in terms of how DAOs are organized and operated, and it's all there and like to be showcased right there in front of you, right? It's not just a word on the screen, which sometimes we forget can be a lot of blockchain.
It'd be really nice to see us use it day to day, use it just more often. Having a discussion and having voting, like Fractally is doing it right now, where they're meeting every Saturday and voting, and then they're actually having a second round now of and coming to a really nice, concise discussion at that final table. And it's I've been talking about it for a year now, that we need to see this on a grander scale. We need to see like 1,000 doctors on the same Zoom call, hashing it out. They're each in a room of 6, and they get whittled down until you reach the final table of the top 6 most articulate doctors in the world who are going to explain what the hell we just have gone through. That kind of thing.
Right. What does that transparency and openness and tendency for debate look like when it's all out there in the open, when you can't have people coming in and skirting behind other people's voices? I mean, I guess you could in a way, but that's all built into the system.
Then you need a whole other layer of Brandon Lovejoy called it fractal films. You need journalists who are going to go in there and watch every single one of those rooms, every single one of those breakout rooms, take really good notes, timestamp, get a few really choice quotes from everybody involved, and then whittle it down. And then you need an army of journalists to go and attack something with 1,000 brilliant people in it. But you think about the product that you could get at the end of that, it would blow your mind. The quality of what you could arrive at, a 1-hour video explaining the afternoon when 1,000 doctors got together. It would just be crazy. It would be so deep and just thick. But there are so many possibilities for this once we start to use it more often. That's all I'm saying. And the 3 months is nice. we're still not at a point where Eden is standing on its own and doing things on its own. And when I say it's like I'm seeing Eden as an organization that is being governed by the people that it elects, and they've been given the ability and the responsibility to govern an organization that the network endowed with a whole bunch of resources so that it would do stuff with those resources, not so it would sit on the resources and save them essentially. So that, for a rainy day or something. And this is all about taking the gold talents that have been given you and putting them in the ground, and then digging them up and giving them back to the network and saying, here you go, I saved them. And it's like, the network didn't want you to bury them and save them. The network wanted you to go and buy a field and plant a vineyard. And, there are other things to do with that money than keep it in savings. Anyway, that's another huge discussion.
No, I think it's a really nice segue, because we're actually going to look at two of your proposals today. And the chat that I kind of had with the last person on Pomelo Pitch Deck, it kind of came out that EOS isn't necessarily the easiest thing to interact with, right? Like if you're coming from outside of the blockchain network, you might not really understand what differentiates it from others. And if you're coming from within the blockchain network, you're probably not going to understand why you have to do all of these things and jump through all these hurdles. This has always been one of, EOS's biggest kind of hurdles that had to kind of jump for adoption. And one of the reasons why primarily it might not have worked, right? Especially in the early days, where you had all of these teams working on different things. So we're just starting to see, kind of rejuvenation of community efforts that are going into going out there and getting people started and getting education going. Some of this is coming through funding like what we have from Pomelo or the ENF. Some of it is coming through like social engagement with what we have with, the governance of Fractally and Eden. But I think it's what you guys are looking at here is a very true scenario of what all blockchains are kind of trying to achieve and move towards, right? We want to make EOS simple and enjoyable for everyone, like easy to use, right? Like you shouldn't have to have a degree in advanced blockchain technology to be able to open a wallet and interact with it, right? There's been some great high points in EOS.io technology for mass onboarding. There's been some kind of low points because of those high points, people taking advantage or trying to spam the network. But at each and every opportunity, I think EOS has made it better. So this is your second proposal. This is Welcome Wagon. Just give us the brief, 15-second elevator pitch to start off. What is Welcome Wagon, and why does the EOS community need it?
Yeah, well, we want to make EOS simple and enjoyable for everyone. And it means that the technology has to be easy to access, it has to be explained well, and it has to be fun. And it's right there in front of you. So what we want to do is create really concise micro courses, like 3 minutes long, explaining a simple blockchain technique, such as creating an account. And then right away, we want to reward people with NFTs. And we've got these cards here. It's really simple. It's got 3 QR codes on the back. It's got your NFT on the front. And all you do is you install the wallet, the Anchor wallet. You use the GrayMass process to create a new EOS account. And then you claim a gift link from Atomic Assets. And it's so simple and slick. What we're doing is not groundbreaking. It's not, we're not reinventing anything. We're just putting together 2 processes that are already there and blending them together so that it makes it fun. Like say the most critical thing is that we want people to keep coming back and doing these actions and learning more and more about their blockchain. And it says categorize new users and teaches them what they need to learn. We need to figure out where a person is in their journey, their technological journey. We have to figure out whether they're a brand new EOS user, whether they are a brand new blockchain user, whether they don't have a computer, they've just got their phone. Like, these are the kinds of things we need to know about people. And then the data that we collect from this is going to help us shape their user journey and help us give them promptings in different directions. So if somebody doesn't know a thing about EOS, we're going to give them the most basic micro course for them to go through. It'll be like 5 minutes on EOS, and then it'll say, like, here, there's all this other stuff in the ecosystem that you can go learn also. Go look at that. But in the meantime, watch this little course, watch this little video, and then collect the NFT that's associated with it. And then
I think that was one of the biggest kind of pitfalls that EOS ran into in the early days, was that they weren't free accounts, really, right? Like, they tried to do it for a while, but it got complicated, and every other blockchain was a free account, and with EOS you had to have resources. But I think now with the advent of like NFTs, we're seeing things like, so we had Mark Stair on from Tippett the other day, and he was talking about essentially how, through Twitter or Telegram, and potentially other platforms, you can just essentially send someone an NFT and their account is there and it's made for them and it's created for them, right? And so we're at that kind of point, I think, where we're going to see people who are kind of creating wallets and transacting in various ways without even realizing that they're on the blockchain. And I think EOS might actually allow for that to happen. Now, my question to you is you kind of went a little bit analog with the card and the QR code there. Now, is that a demo, or is this something that is actually going to be out there in the world that will entice people who maybe aren't a part of blockchain technology to go and scan that and create a wallet? So is this an online thing, or is the card just a demo? Because you kind of lost me on that one.
Well, click on cards. Go up, scroll up to the top of this in the header there. There's a menu option for cards. Anyway, yeah, analog is it's RL. My 19-year-old hates it when I use the word RL with him. It's like, just get it. It's like, it's real life. Like, just, you have to get out of your room and come down to RL. This is something that a real person can hand to a real person. It's got an account embedded in it, like that middle link there, create account. That's a brand new account. The one right beside it, number 3, is claim an NFT. And that picture that you see on the front of the chestahedron, that's the NFT that you're claiming. It's 1, 2, 3. What you're doing is creating an account, claiming the NFT, and that this can go with any community. So this is a perfect way for real life communities. You're Canadian, you're an Ontarian like me, and I witnessed in February a whole bunch of angry people, but they were very, very happy angry people in Ottawa. And there was a shit ton of them. And I witnessed live streams of truckers sitting in their cabs, and then the window rolls down and they're handed a big, huge manila envelope, and it's a paper Bitcoin wallet. It's a paper wallet with $8,000 worth of Bitcoin that has been raised and distributed to them. And the guy was like, wow, thank you. That was something very real, something very tangible that was handed from one real person to another real person. The person who did the handing was felt they felt the urgent need to share Bitcoin wallets with people. They felt the need to go out and do this, and they found the right venue to do it, and they put the fundraising together, and they got it accomplished, and they passed it around. If you're at any sort of place with real people aligned in any sort of real way, it could be a school, it could be a church, it could be a political convention, a political party, it could be a protest, it could be a blockchain conference, it could be any number of situations with real people, and they've got a phone. Everybody's got a smartphone on them now, and they can just scan that card, create an account, and claim the NFT that actually says that they were there. They were there in the flesh for that event, whatever that event was.
Well, I mean, you can hear the excitement in the background. The oohs and ahs. Grandma has a Facebook now that she loves to look at pictures of grandchildren. Grandpa, he's on WhatsApp and he knows how to maybe send a text message or read one, at least if he's picking somebody up. But for the most part, we still live in a society of older people that use technology as a minimum, right? Now,
Yeah.
what's exciting to me is that most of them probably can handle it, but they're immersed in living in real life. They're not living in a metaverse, and they shouldn't have to. But they're immersed in living in real life because that's where they've made their home. Now, when you're a young person and you might not have any future because of rampant inflation and halting job markets because of aging retirement, things like that, it's a different story, right? When you're a young person, you're already plugged into technology. Then asking somebody to go on and read a website and then click a button and open an account, it's okay. But if you're, an older person that's a career person that's, went through multiple generations of seeing things develop, from the bubble era of technology to all the way back to basically your Commodore 64, right? You're not going to take the time to go in and learn something about blockchain and cryptocurrency. You're more worried about what your dollar is going to do in comparison to the rest of the world, right?
Yeah.
So I like this idea because, there's so many applications here where people could just use this as their business cards, right? Now you can go in and you can create an account and you can get funding and all of the information essentially could potentially be there on that NFT. The product information, the sales history, everything can be embedded eventually into the background of this. So I think what you guys are doing here is truly unique in that you're actually taking blockchain off of the technology to get people to get on the train, right? Like you've slowed down that rail so that there's like a stop where people can be waiting at the platform and they can easily jump on and be with the rest of the world without having to run and hope that if they jump and leap and find themselves on that train that they'll be okay, right? And that's one of the biggest problems I think with mass adoption is we don't really focus on the little people, right? Every time there's a bull market in crypto, somebody's onboarding a bakery or a cafe to accept crypto, but really nobody's using it, right? And so I think EOS has that advantage of being fast. It has that advantage of being cheap. And if we can get things like this right, where we can just get everyone with a cell phone to go and create an account, then I think that's really going to be a game changer. So I'm excited, for the first iteration of this, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, they're coming soon to a world near you. We've got the first batch out in the wild, and we'll be getting some reports back. I've been sort of focus grouping these for the last several months. I've been doing a couple of talks locally here with people with zero blockchain experience, but they know something's wrong. It's very easy. You haven't been in Canada for a little while, but it's very easy to walk around Canada and know that something is really weird. Something is wrong. And all of these older people, they know that inflation is here. They know that the banks are here to not protect them. They know that if they step out of line and do something that's ideologically, not, whatever, they're at risk of losing their bank account. They know that they need to have their keys. They understand now with just a little bit of explanation. They understand that they need their keys in their own possession. It was amazing. I did a talk with just a room full of 10 people, and one gentleman had an iPhone. He was the guy in the room with the nice brand new iPhone. I'm like, oh, cool. So why don't you try this? And he's like, no, I'm not putting that on my phone. I don't want it to have anything to do with that. And I'm like, no, just scan this. But literally within a minute, he had Anchor downloaded and his account made. And then we went through the whole account backup talk, and I was like, you want to write down your backup phrase. You want to keep that safe. That's your key to your bank. And then he downloaded the NFT, and then we carried on with the talk. Like 2 weeks later, he was like trading EOS. It was the funniest thing. But he's watching it closely now. And that was coming from somebody who the extent of his use of the technology was online banking. But
I mean, and what
people in the room.
Yeah, I mean, it's super interesting, right? Like, I'm bad. Like, my missus, she's telling me recently, she's like, why do you have all of the manuals for your car and you can find all of this online? And I'm like, yeah, but like the one that's in my car is for my car. It's not if I go online, then I have to search which model of which car, and it takes all this time, right? And then I have to worry about whether I'm like, downloading some nefarious link or something like that, right? So like, I kind of get that. I think a lot of the older generation, they're so paranoid about email scams or grandchildren calling grandma and grandpa, and then some friend meeting them outside of a bank machine somewhere in London, England, because the grandchild couldn't actually go because he's in the hospital and they need life savings and things like that, right? Like, this gets pushed down our throats. But like, it's the scams, right, that are not necessarily on chain that are doing the most harm, right? So if we can get people to go in, if we can get people to put these things on their phone, and they can actually see that there is a level of transparency where everything is tracked, that's step one. But now, what happens when this QR code is on the piece of paper inside the game that you buy? Like, inside of that game that you buy, this QR code that creates your wallet for you, that you can then, follow a link to an exchange, that you can then, trade and transfer these NFTs that you're making or you're earning in game, right? To own your own assets virtually, bringing both those two worlds of, the old school, I can only do online banking. And I played Tetris a few times and I liked it, with like, the grandchildren generation that's doing everything online. And I can see that that's kind of, where you're aiming with this, is to actually indoctrinate people who don't really fully utilize their phone, who don't really understand the benefit and the power and the technology that we're playing around with here.
Yeah. There's these links, once they're created, they're super easy to, we've also got postcards, like digital postcards. Like, imagine right now the friction involved with onboarding say 100 people in an organization. Like, how would you approach that right now, and say you have an hour to do it? Like, it's like, no, it's not going to. With this, you can actually just put together 100 invitations with an account and a token that's going to check up on them. It's going to be the proof that they have accomplished what they set out to do. Like, once that token is claimed, it's in the new account, and that the person who was given that QR code claimed that token. Unless somebody's intercepting their email, but really, come on. It's low value stuff, dealing with account creation codes and NFT claim codes, but it's enough that it's valuable enough, because we'll be able to know that the person who is commissioning these cards, like say it's a company with 100 people who just wants everybody on chain because they have a messaging system that they want everybody to be able to use, and they want everybody to have an account, or just, or they just want to give everybody an NFT, and it's a membership token for whatever, a gardening club. You want everybody in the gardening club to have the NFT, and you distribute it like this. I'm convinced, and I've seen it, that the success rate for this, when you have somebody who's there helping, an organized, in this case, Welcome Wagon, and people who care about making sure that this process works, we'll be there to help. And we're going to be there to tweak the process and figure out what is the most successful way to do these things. And we're going to be able to get a lot of data out of these actions when they're actually performed. And the more cards that we send out, the more information we're going to learn about the success rates for the whole process and just how to tweak it.
So well, and over in the metaverse, one of the projects that's been established there and doing some really interesting things. They have their own coffee brand, and you buy an NFT, and you redeem that NFT, and you get basically coffee sent to your house. Right now, what happens when each and every coffee shop has a little card holder of these beside the register, and you get a 10% discount because you're a valued member that actually came into the shop and didn't use Uber. No offense to Uber, but sorry. No. But I think it's really sorry, Uber here is different. Uber here is Uber Eats only, and they only sorry, I kind of messed up that. But there's a really interesting I think there's a really interesting trajectory with this one, Chuck, and I'm really interested to see, how it plays out, and I'm excited to see where, this goes. So with the grants for Welcome Wagon, what are you guys going to be focusing? Because this is your first Welcome Wagon proposal, if I'm not mistaken. So what are you guys going to be focused on doing initially first with the money with the funding that you receive?
Well, we're looking for funding to create these micro courses. So a 3 to 5 minute video that just explains a core concept of whatever, it could be anything. What we're working on right now is the core concept of just the use of these cards. But then it could be how to look up your account on a block explorer. Just something that simple. And then just walking you through 5 different elements of the way that the block explorer shows your account, 5 different points of data that you can discover about your account and learn about, the whole thing. So that might be the next video that we do would be just exploring what a block explorer does for you and how important it is. But those are public goods, and those videos would be accessible to anybody. However, if you want to log in and that right at the very top there, create a Welcome Wagon account, you can't do it. It's a dead link. It just looks good. But if you wanted to create a Welcome Wagon account and play the game, basically go through this gamification process and watch our videos and be rewarded with NFTs for watching those videos, take a little quiz at the end of the video, earn your NFT, and then carry on to the next NFT. So what we're looking for funding for is to build these micro courses, and we're going to use them on our site. If you want to watch the course and take a quiz on the course and claim your NFT, there you go. Anybody can watch the videos. They'll be freely accessible. But if you want to actually gamify it and create a Welcome Wagon account for free, you'll be able to earn NFTs while you do it. And what this is going to do is also, if you've got a DApp out there, maybe a more obscure DApp, but a good DApp that you want to explain something about what you do, what your core mission is in your DApp, or an NFT community, or any destination on Web3. If you want to come to us to produce a video about your DApp, we'll be able to put together something really nice and quick, highlight you, create an NFT for your DApp, and then create a little micro course for it. And then when our users come in and want to discover what, their next challenge is to watch this video about whatever DApp or whatever community, they can watch it and earn an NFT. And it helps the DApps out. It helps all of our users out. It helps the whole network out. And I think it's a win-win-win scenario. And what's probably most important is that we learn so much about ourselves, learn so much about the network and what's needed and like what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, and how we can improve.
I like it, man. I mean, I love having you on the channel because I just think that there's are really kind of unique interviews in comparison to some of the other ones that I do. Because I mean, yeah, maybe your son's right, but I'm gonna take it in a positive. I'm gonna take it in a positive way. I mean, real life is definitely what we need at this point in crypto, right?
Yeah.
And I think like I'm really excited to see how this develops. So please come back sometime, after the funding rounds and after you guys, have started to implement some of this stuff. I'd love to like just dive into this whole concept of what you guys are building with this one in particular, and kind of maybe track some of this progress and see what comes of this. Maybe feature some of the dApps that might be moving over to you in the very near future. But yeah, like definitely if you believe that crypto shouldn't just be 0.1% of the world population, and the EOS shouldn't be 0.0001% of the 1% of the 0.1% of the crypto population, and that it does actually have a use case beyond hype, beyond battling inflation. I think this one's the one to do it, right? Like this is the type of scenario that we need, that I think is going to be easy for every grandma and every grandpa everywhere to be able to plug into and buy their kids that shovel that they need for that game that is going to mean way more than a freaking sweater. So thanks for coming, Chuck. Much appreciated. And we're gonna let the people go and go and throw some EOS at your favorite projects. Hopefully these two that we covered here today. We'll be back on Monday with some more Pomelo pitch decks, potentially on Sunday. We've got lots more happening in the EOS Pomelo funding round over the course of the next week. So if you're a project out there and you're building and you're looking to do a pitch deck or a fireside chat or a Twitter spaces, get in touch with us here at Gener EOS or over with the EOS Nation team, the Pomelo team. Thanks for joining us, Chuck.
Thanks for having me, Jimmy. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. All right, we'll see you guys all next time. Thanks, and over and out.